Let's be seated, please. Program Director, Ms. Zingiswa Losi, the President of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU, Kitamisha Balelapa John Nkadimeng, the Premier of our province in Gauteng, Premier David Makura, Premier of our province in Limpopo, Premier Chupu Matabata, the leadership of the African National Congress, the leadership of COSATU, the leadership of the South African Communist Party, ministers and deputy ministers, religious leaders and the royal family of King Tulare III, the leadership of the South African National Defence Force, comrades and friends and fellow mourners. I extend a special greeting to all our veterans who cannot be here with us in person today to pay tribute and their last respects to one of their great comrades and one of their own. This is indeed a sad day and a sad time in the life of our nation, but today it is also a time to celebrate a life well lived. Over the past few months, we have lost a number of our veterans. Most recently, Ntate Andrew Mlangeni, his fellow Rivonia trialist, Dennis Goldberg, Martha Mula, Miriam Sitseho Martin, Zinzi Mandela, Mama Toko Msimang, George Duplessis, and a number of others. With the passing of Ntate Nkadimeng, yet another light in a glorious generation has been extinguished. On behalf of the people of South Africa, I convey my deep condolences to the family, comrades, friends, and relatives of Mokomana Ntate Nkadimeng. Death has indeed robbed us of a valuable repository of knowledge and experience. Comrade Nkadimeng has been accorded a special official funeral in recognition of the incredible contribution that he made to the freedom of our country. He suffered for the freedoms that we enjoy today. But he also sacrificed. He fought, he led, but he also allowed himself to be led. Like so many of the great leaders of our country, he was born into poverty and deprivation in rural South Africa. Growing up in now the Limpopo province, the Sekhukhune district, he felt with every day the bitter pain of colonial dispossession, of livelihoods so callously destroyed just so that the riches of our soil may be exploited for the benefit of others. Like so many of our people, he would come to lead. Comrade Nkadimeng left his rural home to seek a living in the big city of Johannesburg. He came to Johannesburg, first finding employment as a domestic worker, and then later he became a factory worker. Apartheid had determined that he should live a life of servitude, toiling each day for the comfort and security of a white master. Comrade Nkadimeng, however, had different plans. Yes, he would endure a life of service, but not to any master other than the struggling masses of South Africa, not to any cause other than the cause of freedom and equality. At a young age, he became a shop steward and a full-time organizer in a trade union, certain that it was only through effective organization that workers of this country could improve the conditions under which they were forced to work and to live. This was a dangerous time to be a trade union organizer, risking arrest, harassment, and even violence. But he would not be deterred. He was there when the South African Congress of Trade Unions, SACTU, was formed in 1955, and 30 years later, he was there as an influential figure in the formation of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU. John Nkadimeng was an unwavering champion of the unity of workers in our country and of the working class in general. To his dying day, he shared the vision of uniting all trade unions under one federation. He firmly believed in the slogan and the concept of one federation, one country. He believed that this would make trade unions stronger and more impactful in improving the lives of working people in South Africa. As a young man, he joined the liberation movement because he believed that the struggle for national liberation could not be separated from the daily struggles on the shop floor and the factory floor of working people to end class exploitation. As a volunteer in the Defiance Campaign in 1952, and as a leading organizer of the Congress of the People in 1955, as a member of the Transvaal ANC Executive and later the ANC National Executive, Comrade Nkadimeng was a vital part of the generation that transformed the ANC into a militant mass movement and thereby changed the course of our history as a country. He paid the price for his convictions. He was arrested on a number of occasions, detained as a suspected saboteur, and he was banned for a number of years. He was one of the 156 Congress leaders arrested in pre-dawn raids in December 1956 and had to go through a treason trial that went on and on and on. He remained an accused until the end of the trial in 1961, when all remaining defendants were found not guilty. These brave men and women, through the ordeals that they endured, through their defiance, through their sacrifice, through their courage at one of the darkest moments in our history, endure in our memories, and continue to inspire our actions. And this is the man who lies before us today. John Nkadimeng was also a human rights activist and worked with the Human Rights Welfare Committee, established to make contact with banished people throughout South Africa and to find those banished after the Sekhukhune trials in the late 1950s. He did this in a country that did not know or respect human rights. It was due to his work and the work of many others like him that we are today a country that is founded on human rights and for dignity for all. His life stood as an example of how we should each conduct ourselves as we seek to build a more just and humane society. As it has been written, when a good man or a woman dies, their light lies upon the paths of others. The example they set and the values they lived by are a guide to those that follow. Each time one of our veterans passes away, a part of our history dies with them. And as much as we mourn them, it is our solemn task to ensure that what they stood for does not die with them. The role played by Comrade John Nkadimeng in the conception of a free and democratic South Africa will never be forgotten. He lived and understood the daily struggles of working people in our country. He suffered the oppression and the exploitation of apartheid capitalism and dedicated his life to ensuring that workers should enjoy the results of their labor. And he believed in the inalienable right to dignity for all South Africans, but especially for those who bore the brunt of economic marginalization. It is that commitment and determination that we need today as workers of this country face perhaps their greatest challenge since the advent of democracy. The coronavirus pandemic has had a devastating impact, not just on public health, but on the livelihoods of our people. Many people have lost their jobs and continue to lose their jobs even as we speak. Many people have lost their incomes and continue to lose their incomes even now as we speak. Our already fragile economy has been significantly damaged, and the task of recovery for our economy is going to be quite immense. Drawing on the spirit of Comrade Nkadimeng, we must unite as social partners, as government, business, labor, and civil society to do everything within our means to rebuild our economy. More than that, we must transform our economy as well, so that it resembles less of where we were before the pandemic and more of where we want to be. We must ensure that the world of work which emerges from this crisis is one in which the conditions of workers are dramatically improved in all respects. John Nkadimeng became an activist with no expectation of recognition or reward. He was never one of those leaders who wanted to be recognized for the work that he did for our people. He was not a person who liked the limelight. He was humble. Despite his considerable stature and standing in his community, he was just a simple, humble person. He was not one for accolades, despite being a recipient of the Order of Luthuli in gold and isithwalandwe siaparangwe, which is the highest honor bestowed by the African National Congress. To him, such recognition was secondary to his commitment to serving his people. Today, we also heard about many other accolades and awards that he received from a number of institutions. But he was a humble person. He endured immense personal hardships, including numerous arrests, banning orders, and exile. But the difficult conditions did not discourage him and his comrades from their commitment to the liberation of our people. On the contrary, they only helped to sharpen their resolve. Just as we strive in the spirit of solidarity to protect the rights of society's most vulnerable, so too must we work together to rid our society of the scourge of cronyism and corruption. It is of the gravest of concerns that we are being confronted with the misdeeds of those abusing their access to political and state power to enrich themselves. Day by day, we learn more about actions of thieving, of looting, and corruption. Day by day, the trust and the confidence of our people is being eroded, leading many to proclaim that the days of ethical and selfless leadership are behind us. At a time when we are losing ever more from the generation who led us to victory over apartheid, we are at a very real risk of destroying the gains they secured for us and our children. Their sacrifices must not be in vain. We must firmly tackle and take back the reins from those out to destroy our country. Now, more than ever before, we have to hold fast to the lessons that they taught us about serving our people, about respecting them, about heeding their concerns, and about acting in their best interests. Let this be a turning point in the fight against corruption in our country. Let us use this moment to banish this virus, this disease of corruption from our politics, from our movement, from our economy, and from our country. Let the people of rural Sekhukhune, the domestic workers in our cities, the shop stewards in our factories, the people who Comrade John Nkadimeng led and served, rise up against those who would plunder our nation's resources and lay waste to our democracy. Let us give our law enforcement agencies the support, the information, and the means to act against all those responsible for such crimes against the people, no matter who they are or what positions they occupy. Let us strengthen our law enforcement agencies and not seek to compromise them. Strengthen them to fight this virus of corruption. Let those of us who've been put in positions of responsibility examine our own conduct, search our consciences, and act only and always in the interests of the people of our country. Now more than ever, we have to stand united in our quest to restore our country to its founding values, values that Ndate John Nkadimeng lived by. We must draw on his life's example to recapture the spirit of humility, the spirit of volunteerism, and the spirit of commitment. We must expend our every effort to take up the struggles against poverty, inequality, underdevelopment, disease, and gender-based violence. The world we seek to build, where there is true freedom, justice, and equality, has still to be realized. Let it not be said in time that the selfless spirit that drove the men and the women of the generation of Comrade John Nkadimeng died with them. It is not enough to eulogize them and laud them and praise the values by which they lived. It is only by restoring that culture of selflessness, of integrity, of ethical leadership, and of service to the people that will uphold their legacy. As we carry Comrade Nkadimeng to his final resting place, let us recommit ourselves to the renewal of our society and our country. Brick by brick, let us finish the task of building the South Africa to which he and his generation dedicated their lives. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Comrade JKN, re tsamaya ka kgotso. As you go and join your comrades, we will continue the task that you have left for us. I thank you.